This is the Myford University podcast, episode 8. We're going to be talking about asking what if. Welcome back to the Myford University podcast, everyone. The show where we unpack powerful ideas and give you tools to think, act, and perform at a higher level. I'm your host, George Sloan. Last episode, we talked about my favorite question, why? It's the root cause. It's a no bullshit question that I use to get to the truth, to break down problems and to figure out what's really going on. But today, I want to explore a different question. It's one that's just as powerful, but in a different way. In fact, it's my second favorite question. I usually use the two in conjunction, and you'll get a feel for why that is in a second. But getting back to it, it's a question. Asking what if is a question that opens doors, creates spaces, and invites possibilities. It's the one that I turn to when I want to imagine something better. The question is, what if? Think about that for a second. So, why does what if matter? What if is the starting point of almost anything worthwhile? What if there's a better way? What if we're solving the wrong problem? What if we're underestimating ourselves? It's the question behind every bold idea. I always go back to Apple, Steve Jobs. What if we put a personal computer on everyone's desk? That's where it all started, everybody. Every pivot that you do, every reinvention that you do, what if is what makes it happen. What if pushes back against the limits that we've accepted. I've heard another expression lately, and I talk about it in one of my thinking podcast episodes. If it doesn't violate the law of physics, it's possible. We just might not have the ability to do it, but we should ask, what if? That gets into first principles thinking, by the way. Again, that's covered in a different episode. So, where why helps us understand what is, what if helps us imagine what could be. You see why I like using the two of them together? It's a critical shift. And most people live inside of what's probable. They've never touched what's possible. What if breaks that pattern? I'm going to freelance here for a second. There's a concept I came across when I was looking into innovation. It's called the adjacent possible. And I'll cover it in a future podcast, but in a nutshell, when you get to the cutting edge, the vanguard of any endeavor, field, technology, anything, it's when you get there that you can see the adjacent possible. And you usually will not see it until you get to the edge. When you get to the cutting edge, the adjacent possible starts to present itself. It's like going to the horizon, and when you get there, there's more horizon. But again, I'll do it as a separate podcast. Think about that one for a second. All right, so what does what if actually do? Let's be clear, what if isn't a fluffy question. It's not daydreaming, it's strategic. What if lets you look at and explore without making commitments. It lets you reframe fears. It lets you generate ideas. Love brainstorming. We keep talking about that one. It lets you plan for multiple futures. I also want to add to that one. It also helps you consider contingencies. It lets you consider unintended consequences. And as a project manager who likes to manage risk, you always have to ask, what if? What could go wrong? What do I have to consider? What am I forgetting? So think about what if as not only a tool for better things, but to avoid bad things. All right. It also lets you imagine success before it happens. It used to be a situation where people would not kind of think too forward because things moved a lot slower. But as things get faster and faster, you need to go through this process of asking what if more often. All right. So it's used in design thinking, which we've just talked about in a previous episode. It's used in product development. It's used in risk analysis, like I hinted at that a moment ago. It's also used for entrepreneurs. It's also a creative problem-solving tool. Hell, it even can be used in parenting. It's the foundation of curiosity-driven thinking. And that matters. And you want to know why? Because most of us get trapped into linear thinking. You always have to think in terms of what are the three possible. I always like to work in threes. What are three other possibilities? Remember I mentioned the 1-3-1 model, which would be the subject of another podcast. Figure out the one problem, come up with three possible solutions, and then pick one that you recommend and act on. Okay? So think in terms of either this or that, do this or do nothing, or win-lose. That's all kind of black and white. What if helps you live in the gray. So what if breaks that pattern, it creates a third door and sometimes a fourth. I talk about this with certain colleagues all the time. Too many people are too black and white. Do we want black and white? Sort of a binary, 0 or 1? Great. But sometimes in the real world, there is the in between, and we have to think in terms of a shade of gray. It's not always going to be as simple as black and white. And what if is a great tool to help you with that. So you're probably asking yourself, how do I use it? Personally, I've used what if in some of the biggest life and business decisions I've ever made. Look, I've asked, what if I launched something no one else is doing? What if I didn't follow the conventional path? That's kind of what we're talking about here, by the way. We're trying to get away from the idea of the traditional formal higher education and coming up with a new alternative that is not only more efficient, but it's also more cost effective, and it's quick. So you can't just get stuck in the box, and things that work in the past don't always work in the future. I often say things change. Sometimes new information means it's time to make a new decision. So the other thing you can think of is, what if this risk I'm afraid of is actually the thing I should do? Think about that one. That's powerful. This thing has helped me see options where I used to see just walls, and it can help you too. It's helped people I've coached look past fear and find momentum. And it's helped teams I've led move from stuck to strategic. I'm not trying to romanticize it. I'm not trying to flex. But what if has some magical connotations to it. It's a great starting point, and sometimes that's all you need. I was once brought into a situation where they were stuck on something for months. And I came in and I said, okay, what are the blockers? What are your pain points? The wheels had fallen off this thing and it was stuck in the mud. And I said, okay, tell me what's going on. And I said, what if we do this? What if we do that? And what if we do that one? And they suddenly were like, wow, new ideas, new blood, new perspective. We got the wheels back on this thing and we got it rolling, and we got it rolling quick. So what if is a very powerful tool. All right. So I want to talk about ways to use what if in the real world. Let's get practical. All right. Here are a few ways you can use it to look at things differently and start doing it today. That's the beauty of Myford University. We learn it quick and we use it quicker, or learn it fast and apply it faster. Depends on how you want to look at it. All right. 1, you can use it to generate ideas. It's great for brainstorming. Start the meeting or a journal session with, what if we stopped doing what isn't working? What if we went to a different customer? What if we built this backwards? That's inversion. I'll have a podcast about inversion thinking on that one. So what if is powerful. Now you got to get a little bit more honest, and some of the creative answers that might come will give you the answer of what you should do. You just got to get started by asking what the possibilities are. All right. 2, use it to reframe fear. When your brain starts serving up anxiety, flip it. Instead of what if I fail, make it, what if this changes everything? Think about that one. What if I look stupid? Should become, what if I grow because of it? The way everyone grows is by falling down. The real secret is to get back up. But what have I said before? Fail fast, iterate faster. All right. It doesn't mean ignoring risk altogether. Just don't ignore the upside. I'm not saying be a riverboat gambler, But sometimes you have to do a risk-reward analysis. I'll do a podcast on that at some point. Effectively, you have to say, can I control or manage these risks? Because the reward on the upside is significant. This helps you get there. Start asking what if. All right, number 3, use it to plan multiple futures. Ask yourself and your team these questions. What if the economy shifts? The economy could do 3 things. At any time, the economy can do 3 things. You want to know what they are? It could improve, it could stay the same, or it could get worse. This is where I get back to the old contingency thinking I mentioned earlier. Ask what if. What if our lead source dries up? Well, you should never put all your eggs in one basket. You should have leads coming in from multiple places. Ask what if. What if it does? What will we do? What if we tried this lead source? What if we tried that one? Always ask what if. All right, what if demand triples? That'd be great, but can you support it? Can you fulfill it? Those are things you got to ask. This effectively, what I'm describing is scenario planning, and good leaders do it. Good entrepreneurs live by it. All right, let's talk business and personal examples. I think that this might help get a little more clarity on this point. I'll give you the professional or business one first, then we'll do the personal. Your company's growth is flat. Instead of panicking or cutting costs, ask yourself, what if we're targeting the wrong segment? What if we created a premium tier? What if we stopped offering the low margin stuff? When Steve Jobs came back to Apple, he found that they were doing too many products. He did leave, if you don't know about that, and he came back. And he said, we're only going to focus on 3 products. I think it was 3. But they had dozens. And he decided we're going to cut some of those out. And Apple then went to new heights thereafter. So there's an example of it actually working. So these questions, they're going to lead you to a smarter model, not a busier one. All right, let's do a personal example. Let's say you're drained at work, you're just burned out, and you're scared to make a move. You should never be scared. Try this. Ask yourself, what if I didn't need to quit right away? What if I started freelancing on the side? What if I built up 6 months of savings? What if I started building something of my own? Everyone should always be building themselves or building a project or a business on the side. It helps you get better. It helps you develop your mind, your abilities, build your confidence. Anyway, what if is a powerful tool to use on yourself. It gives you movement, it gives you momentum, and it starts with one question. What if? All right. What if in teams and leadership? Let's talk about that real quick. Now, if you're leading a team, what if is one of your best tools? And you might be saying, well, why? Because it creates a psychological safety. You're able to let people kind of free flow thinking. Again, going back to brainstorming. Instead of shutting down a wild idea, ask, what if it actually worked? What would need to be true for it to work? Think about that. Don't just shut things down. Always consider. Sometimes crazy ideas at first are actually brilliant ones in disguise that people just haven't realized yet. So using what if, you're not debating, you're exploring. Think of it as in terms of exploration. It also builds a culture where ideas can breathe and thrive. And that's where breakthroughs live. Everyone is going to the quick and easy win. And quite frankly, some of the greatest wins might just require asking a few more questions, like why and what if. All right. I guess we got to get to pitfalls in a way. Avoid the what if spiral. Now, quick warning on this. What if can cut both ways. It can lead you to hope or it can spiral you into fear. You probably asked, what if this ruins me? What if I embarrass myself? What if I'm too late? It's totally normal. But here's what you should be doing. Ask those questions, but ask them in reverse. This is inversion thinking. Again, I have an episode coming up on this. What if this works? What if this is my moment? What if I'm right on time? I think of Costanza. If you ever watch Seinfeld, you'll get this one. Costanza, if everything I think and do is wrong, then the opposite must be right. That was a very funny episode. Anyway, this shift really, really matters. You still acknowledge the risk, but you don't surrender to it. You plan for it. You have a contingency. You may transfer it away. You may avoid it. There's a whole bunch of things. Or you may go headlong into it. It all depends. You got to ask what if. All right, some final thoughts and a few action steps for you. I want to land the plane here. So, what if isn't just a question, it's a key that unlocks better options, bolder thinking, and smarter strategy. You don't have to act on every what if, but you do have to ask. And that's the key. Just ask. Explore. Think about what the possibilities are. Remember I talked about the adjacent possible. I will do a full episode on that one. All right. Because if you never ask the question, what if, you'll never find the door. So keep that in mind. Here's what I want you to do this week. Write down 5 what if questions about your work, your business, your life. Pick one and then map out what you need for it to be true, which would then make it possible. And then take one of your fear-based what ifs and flip it into a possibility-based one. Again, use inversion thinking. That's it. Let your imagination lead your strategy for once, and you might be surprised at where it takes you. And I'll leave you with this. What if the opportunity you're waiting for is the one that you create? Think about that. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to Myford University podcast. If you found it helpful, please share it with someone who's stuck and needs a new way to think. And if you want a full written article, go on over to myforduniversity.com/blog or hit the link in the show notes. Until next time, keep asking better questions, keep thinking bigger, and keep building what matters. Thank you.